Poor Victoria, still struggling to find her path? The words floated across my mother's perfectly manicured garden during our annual family brunch. Aunt Marie's voice carried that special tone reserved for discussing life's disappointments, like her struggling niece who just couldn't seem to get it together. I stirred my mimosa, watching condensation drip down the glass while my cousin Olivia detailed her latest promotion at Anderson Financial. Senior VP of Operations, Aunt Marie announced proudly, loud enough for the entire garden to hear. And only 32. The youngest in the company's history. I was 32 as well. A fact Aunt Marie never failed to emphasize when highlighting the growing gap between her daughter's success and my apparent failure. "What are you doing these days, Victoria?" Uncle Peter called out, more confrontation than question. "Still with that little property management company?" I nodded, taking a small sip of my drink. "Something like that." "Property management," Aunt Marie sighed, shaking her head. "Collecting rent checks and unclogging toilets. With your education." Yes, my education. Stanford Business School. The same as Olivia. Except she'd gone straight to Anderson Financial, climbing the corporate ladder with religious dedication. I'd chosen a different path. "She's not just collecting rent checks, Mother," Olivia interjected with what she probably thought was kindness. "She's an assistant property manager now, right, Vicky?" I didn't correct her. Let them think I spent my days chasing late payments and dealing with broken elevators. The truth was far more interesting, but timing was everything. "I'm doing fine," I said quietly. "Fine isn't thriving," Aunt Marie countered. "Look at Olivia, corner office, company car, summer house in the Hamptons. That's thriving." I glanced at my simple dress, carefully chosen Chanel, though they assumed it was H&M, my modest watch, Patek Philippe, disguised by its understated design, and smiled. If they only knew about my real office, or rather offices. "Victoria could come work for me," Olivia offered magnanimously. "We always need good people in operations. Entry level, of course, but it's a foot in the door." I thought about the document sitting on my real desk, waiting for signatures. Anderson Financial's lease on their current building was expiring, and they were desperately seeking new office space in downtown Chicago. Space I happen to own. "Thanks," I said. "I'll keep that in mind." Mom appeared with more mimosas, her face wearing the worried look she'd perfected over the past decade. "Victoria's just taking her time finding her path," she defended weakly. "Time?" Aunt Marie scoffed. "She's had 10 years since graduation. 10 years of, what exactly? 10 years of building something they couldn't see. Wouldn't see until I wanted them to. Remember when we thought she'd be the successful one?" Uncle Peter chuckled. "Top of her class at Stanford, offers from every major firm. And she chose property management," Aunt Marie finished, sighing dramatically. "At least she's employed, I suppose." My phone buzzed, a text from my real estate director about another acquisition. 4 blocks in downtown Manhattan, prime location, confidential sale. I typed a quick approval while my family continued discussing my disappointments. "Did you hear about the Mitchell building?" Olivia announced suddenly. "Anderson Financial is moving our offices there. Most prestigious address in Chicago's financial district." I took another sip of mimosa, hiding my smile. They didn't know that the Mitchell building was just one of many properties in my portfolio, all held through various shell corporations and holding companies. "Probably costs a fortune," Uncle Peter mused. "Prime real estate like that. The owner's some mysterious billionaire," Olivia continued. "Nobody knows who really controls it. Very secretive. If they'd looked closely, they might have noticed my subtle smile. But they never looked closely at me anymore. Not since I'd disappointed them by refusing the corporate path. "Victoria," Aunt Marie's voice cut through my thoughts, "you should ask Olivia about employee housing benefits at Anderson. Much better than that studio apartment you're in." The studio apartment was actually a penthouse covering the entire top floor of one of my buildings. But they'd never visited. I always met them at their homes or restaurants, maintaining the illusion they'd created. "I'm comfortable where I am," I said. "Comfortable isn't successful," Aunt Marie pressed. "When I was your age." I let her words wash over me, thinking about the meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Anderson Financial's executives, including Olivia, would be touring their potential new offices. They didn't know that every building on their shortlist belonged to the same owner. Me. "At least try to make something of yourself," Aunt Marie continued, "before it's too late." My phone buzzed again, confirmation of the Manhattan purchase. Another $1 billion added to the portfolio. I excused myself to take the call, walking past the family photos on Mom's wall. Pictures of Olivia's graduations, promotions, achievements. The empty spaces where my successes should have been told their own story. Yes, I spoke softly into the phone out of earshot. Proceed with the purchase. And about tomorrow's meeting with Anderson Financial. Make sure everything's perfect. Behind me, I could hear Aunt Marie's voice carrying across the garden. Poor Victoria, still trying to figure out life while everyone else has moved forward. I smiled thinking about tomorrow. About the moment they'd finally see what I'd built while they were busy pitying me. About the look on their faces when they realized who really owned the Mitchell Building, and most of Chicago's financial district. Sometimes success doesn't need to be announced. Sometimes it's sweeter when it's revealed at exactly the right moment. And my moment was coming. 10 years is a long time to build an empire in silence. But silence, I learned, was the greatest advantage of all. It started small, a rundown building in Chicago's South Side. Everyone at Stanford thought I was crazy for turning down Goldman Sachs to manage a decrepit 12-unit apartment building. "You're throwing your life away," Olivia had said over coffee shortly after graduation. "Property management? Really?" What she didn't know was that I'd already seen what others missed. That first building taught me everything: how to renovate efficiently, how to maximize value, how to see potential where others saw problems. I lived in one of the units, learned every aspect of property management from the ground up. Not because I had to, but because knowledge was power. Real power, not the kind that came with corner offices and fancy titles. The second building came 6 months later. Then the third. Each purchase carefully structured through different LLCs, each property held under different company names. Victoria Chin, the struggling property manager, was nowhere on the paperwork. Still in that tiny apartment? Aunt Marie would ask at family gatherings. "Olivia just bought a condo in Gold Coast." I'd nod, not mentioning that I owned the building Olivia's condo was in. Or that her expensive view was courtesy of air rights I controlled. The first big break came 3 years in. A distressed office building in the financial district, 30 stories of potential that everyone else had written off. "It's too risky," my first banker had warned. The renovation costs alone. But I'd done my homework. Knew the zoning laws, the air rights, the potential. 2 years and $40 million later, that building was worth 9 figures. More importantly, it gave me a foothold in downtown Chicago. My real office was on the top floor, though I never used the main entrance. A private elevator, a different name on the directory, and careful scheduling ensured no one connected Victoria Chin with Mitchell Holdings, the company quietly acquiring prime real estate across the city. "You should see my new office," Olivia bragged at Christmas dinner 5 years ago. "Corner suite, 42nd floor, overlooking the river." I smiled, remembering the lease negotiations for that building. Her company paid premium rates, but they thought they were getting a deal. They never knew that their rent checks, along with those from half the financial district, ended up in my accounts. The empire grew strategically. Each acquisition carefully planned, each property improved and maximized. Shell companies within shell companies, all leading back to a holding corporation in Delaware that only my most trusted advisors knew I controlled. "Victoria's still trying to find herself," I overheard Mom telling her friends at the country club. "At least she's stable. Stable." If they only knew about the meetings I took in New York, London, Hong Kong. About the billions in transactions that flowed through my companies. About the fact that their country club sat on land I'd acquired through a blind trust. 7 years in, I controlled most of Chicago's prime commercial real estate. 8 years, expanded to New York and Los Angeles. 9 years, international properties started joining the portfolio. "Maybe Victoria could manage one of our buildings," Olivia suggested to her CO during a family dinner last year. Once we moved to the Mitchell Building. Give her some real experience." The CEO had smiled politely, not knowing he'd been negotiating their new lease with me personally, though he thought he was dealing with a mysterious European investment group. My phone buzzed, another acquisition closing. A prime block in Manhattan's financial district. $22 billion in assets now, spread across 3 continents. All hidden behind carefully constructed corporate veils. Poor Victoria, Aunt Marie's voice echoed in my mind. Still struggling. The struggle, if there ever was one, had been maintaining the illusion. Living simply when I could afford entire neighborhoods. Driving a modest car when my garage held vehicles worth millions. Listening to their pity when I could have bought their companies with a month's income. But tomorrow, Anderson Financial's executive team would tour their potential new offices. Tomorrow, Olivia would walk through buildings she'd bragged about, never knowing who really owned them. Tomorrow the carefully constructed facade would crack, just enough to let them see what I'd built while they were busy feeling sorry for me. My real estate director texted, "Everything ready for tomorrow's tour. All 5 buildings prepared." "Good," I replied. "Make sure the top floor conference room in the Mitchell building is set up exactly as discussed." I looked out from my actual office, the entire top floor of Chicago's most prestigious address. Below, the city glittered, so much of it now mine. Buildings full of people who worked, lived, and thrived in spaces I controlled. My phone buzzed again, Mom this time. "Honey, are you coming to Sunday brunch? Olivia wants to tell everyone about her company's big move." I smiled, thinking about next Sunday's brunch. About how different it would be from all the others. "Wouldn't miss it," I typed back. Because sometimes success doesn't need to be announced. Sometimes it just needs to be revealed at precisely the right moment. And my moment was almost here. There's something poetic about watching people discover a truth that's been right in front of them all along. I stood in my private elevator ascending to the top floor of the Mitchell building, thinking about timing and perception. The text from my director confirmed. Andersen Financial's executive team, including Olivia, had just entered the lobby. They'd tour all 5 buildings on their shortlist today, not knowing each one belonged to the same owner. To me, I watched through discreetly placed cameras as they entered the first building. Olivia in her designer suit, pointing out features to her colleagues, playing the role of the successful executive perfectly. "The owner has multiple properties in the financial district," their tour guide explained, following my careful script. "All premium locations, all maintained to the highest standards." 4 buildings later, they arrived at the Mitchell building, my flagship property. I stood at the window of the top floor conference room watching their cars pull up. "Final building of the day," I heard their guide say through the security feed. "The crown jewel of Chicago's financial district." "I heard the owner some European investment group," one executive mentioned. Olivia nodded importantly. "Very mysterious. Nobody knows who really controls it." I smiled, straightening my simple black dress, Armani, though they'd assume it was something far less expensive. Time to greet my guests. The elevator doors opened and their voices carried down the marble hallway. "Incredible views dash. State-of-the-art facilities dash. The prestige alone dash." Then silence as they entered the conference room and saw me standing there. "Victoria." Olivia's voice cracked with confusion. "What are you doing here? This is a private tour." "I know," I said quietly. "Welcome to my building." The room froze. Olivia's perfect composure slipped for the first time in years. "You're what?" I gestured to the chair at the head of the table, my chair. "Please everyone have a seat. We have a lot to discuss." "There must be some mistake," Olivia CEO started. "We're here to meet with the owner dash." "Yes," I smiled. "You are." I clicked a button and the wall screens came to life, displaying my portfolio, the Mitchell building, the Andersen Tower, the Thompson Center. Property after property all under my control. "This is impossible," Olivia whispered. "You're a property manager." "I manage properties," I corrected softly. "All of them. Including every building you toured today." The CEO's face went pale as understanding dawned. "The European Investment Group. One of my holding companies," I confirmed. "Along with the Asian consortium you met last week, and the American trust you've been negotiating with." Olivia sank into a chair, her perfect world visibly tilting. "But you're struggling. Everyone knows." "Everyone assumes," I corrected. "There's a difference." My phone buzzed, a text from Aunt Marie. "Darling, how's the job search going? Olivia mentioned she's touring new office buildings today. Maybe she can help." I showed the message to Olivia, whose face went from pale to crimson. 10 years, I said quietly. 10 years of poor Victoria. 10 years of pity and condescension. 10 years of building this, while you were all too busy feeling sorry for me to notice. "The studio apartment," Olivia started. "High penthouse," I corrected. "Top floor West Tower." "The little property management company?" "Mitchell Holdings. Current portfolio value, $22 billion. The executives were frantically whispering among themselves now, realizing they'd been negotiating with different faces of the same owner all along. "Why?" Olivia asked finally. "Why let us think?" "Because perception is power," I said. "And sometimes the best way to build something extraordinary is to let people underestimate you." I walked to the window looking out over my city. "Now about your lease. I've reviewed your proposal. We'll pay whatever you want, the CEO interjected quickly. The Mitchell building is perfect for us. It is, I agreed. But I think we should discuss all your Chicago properties. After all, I own most of them. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, Anderson Financial had a new lease agreement fair, but very much on my terms. As the executives filed out, Olivia lingered. Mom's going to. Aunt Marie will be quite surprised, I finished. Especially since she's been trying to get into the Bristol Club for years. What about the Bristol Club? I own it, I said simply. Along with most of the block it sits on. She stared at me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in a decade. All those family brunches, the pitying looks, the suggestions about entry-level jobs. Were quite entertaining, I smiled. Though I suspect future brunches will be different. My phone buzzed again, Mum, this time. Honey, did you hear about Olivia's big office move? Maybe you could help her with the transition, learn something about corporate success. I showed Olivia the message. She laughed, a strange hollow sound. What do we tell them? She asked. Nothing, I said. The Mitchell Building's new tenant list will be published next week. Your company's name will be on it. Along with the owners. They'll all see. Exactly what I want them to see, I finished. Now if you'll excuse me, I have other meetings. Your escort will show you out. As she turned to leave, she paused. Victoria, I'm sorry. For everything. Don't be, I said quietly. Success isn't about who has the corner office or the fanciest title. It's about building something real, something lasting. Even if others can't see it yet. After she left, I stood at my window watching the sun set over my city. My phone buzzed one final time, an invitation to Sunday brunch. I smiled, thinking about the week ahead. About the moment my name would be published as the owner of half of Chicago's premium real estate. About the looks on their faces when they realized who they'd been pitying all these years. I'll be there, I texted back. Because sometimes success doesn't need to be defended or explained. Sometimes it just needs to be revealed. And watch as the truth changes everything.